Okay, so I want to talk to you about Good to Great. And the chapter that I really felt was powerful was Confronting the Brutal Facts. And the picture that I chose here in the beginning, the reality check ahead, I thought was very interesting, and it really kind of summed up the whole chapter and where we need to confront our brutal facts, confront reality, and it might be scary. We might need to have some caution, but it's doable. So the first thing concept here that was very interesting to me was the squiggly things under rocks, and I kind of related it to Winston Churchill a little bit. Squiggly things under rocks was a statement made by Fred Perdue from Pitney Bowes, who said that pretty much you have two choices. You can lift the rock and see what's there and kind of put it back real quick and not deal with it, sweep it under the rug. Or you can lift that rock and confront what's there, and even though it scares the heck out of you, you're going to deal with it. So that I felt was a very powerful choice that you could make, a very interesting statement that you can sweep it under the rug or you can face the facts and deal with it. And that kind of leads me to Winston Churchill in World War II. He was a very strong personality, strong charismatic leader, and he had a vision that Britain would survive and prevail as a great nation. Fighting Hitler for him was a non-negotiable. He would not compromise anything to Hitler. He would not fall to Hitler. He would not compromise. This was very important, a concept, his vision. He always confronted the brutal facts. He was actually, stated that he was scared that people wouldn't come to him because he was, such a charismatic leader with the facts, that they would brush them aside and not tell him what was important. So he created a statistical office for himself that focused only on feeding him the brutal facts. And this was important. He could sleep at night, he said, because it was just facts. And this allowed him to become a better leader, a better, strategically, so that he knew what was happening and when, and he had those facts. And they were scary, but he was going to deal with them. So how do we create this climate that we have this open communication where we can discuss the truth? And this picture I thought was really interesting. This cartoon up at the top, this kind of shows us what the good to great companies, or the ones that were not good to great, were like. The ones that kind of hid their head in the hole and said, yeah, everything looks great from here because we're not facing our reality. We're going to just be optimistic and think that everything's okay and not face it head on. So Collins talked about this climate where the truth is heard. So the first thing is to lead with questions and not answers. So if you have the right people on the bus, going back to one of the previous chapters, you can ask questions because you're not there to motivate them. They're self-motivated. They're there for a common purpose. Whatever you're doing, it's bigger than themselves. It's not just about money. So this is really important, that you can not know the answers as a leader and that you can ask questions because the people there are people that are trustworthy and they have a common goal. Um, you can have debates to gain understanding about these different questions. And they said some of the terms that were widely used in the good to great companies were, loud debates and heated discussions. And it was okay for the leaders to not know the answer. They didn't know the path they were taking. They were asking questions to get there. The second is to engage in dialogue and debate and not coercion. So we kind of discussed this already, saying that, we're going to have heated debates, heated discussions, and they're going to lead us in the right direction. But the big thing is we're not coercing. We're not trying to get buy-in to a vision. We're not trying to get people to jump on board with whatever it is that we're selling. It's truth in dialogue. It's us trying to get to those brutal facts, confront them, face them, and problem solve. So we're not coercing anyone. Next is to conduct autopsies without blame. And Philip Morris, the story really struck home for me here, was the 7-Up disaster. I found it very interesting that when they interviewed different executives, different managers, that it was an open discussion about their 7-Up disaster, that everybody was talking about it. They weren't trying to sweep it under the rug like it didn't happen, that they didn't make any mistakes. When the companies who were not good to great, they would not talk openly about anything that went wrong. They wouldn't face it. But Philip Morris did with the 7-Up disaster. However, they didn't place blame anywhere. They said it was a flawed decision, but there was no blame. Nobody blamed any one person or them, they. It was never, a blame game. Versus the leader of Philip Morris, who actually was the only one who took blame and said, this was my bad decision, another decision that failed. And not only did he put the blame on himself, but he gave props to those who were right. He gave credit to those people who told him not to do this or had great ideas. He didn't take he took the blame on himself, and he also, gave credit where credit was due. So this conducting of autopsies allows a search for understanding and learning. It allows you to reflect upon the problems and say, what can we do better next time? The red flag mechanism goes back to Collins told a story about in his class that he was teaching. He did this with students. He would give them a red flag and say, okay, you got one opportunity during the semester to use this. You can use it to stop me and give me any, questions, comments, anything you would like to say. And so this is information that cannot be ignored. And he said one student rose the red flag and said, hey, the questions you're asking are kind of, suffocating our creative process. And we could do a lot better if you stopped doing that. And it was a brutal fact for him. It was something he had to reflect upon and change. And he did. And he said this was powerful because, anybody can give an end of the class survey and say, okay, for feedback. But this was immediate. This was immediate feedback during the class that allowed him to better himself. And this was a red flag mechanism that he put into place. But, and this here kind of sums up what I feel was really about the climate that he created in a sentence. It's where truth is heard and the brutal facts are confronted. You're opening up those communication lines. The Stockdale paradox, I have to mention it because I felt it was so powerful, was about a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 8 years who survived. And he survived because he retained faith that he would prevail and that he would, be free. And not only that, but he decided that, hey, when I'm free, this is going to be a moment when I look back and it's going to help define me. It's going to help me grow. And that's huge. I mean, he's being tortured and he can look ahead and see in, a faith and hold on to that. And he said, well, what was the difference between him and the optimist who died? Well, it was the fact that he faced his reality. The optimist said, hey, we'll be out by Christmas. We'll be out by Thanksgiving. They did not look around and face the reality that was in front of them. And Stockdale did. And this helped him survive. So what does this mean for us as educational leaders? It means that you should confront your squiggly worms. Don't be afraid of them. The things that scare you the most are probably things that you need to reflect upon and problem solve about. Don't sweep it under the rug. Reflect upon your mistakes and allow them to help you grow and change. Everybody makes mistakes, but it's recognizing where you made the mistake and what you did wrong to help you grow that really is powerful. Engage in dialogue that confronts the truth. Have those people around that you trust. Have those professional communities and be able to have that dialogue, that open dialogue where the truth can be confronted and the facts can be revealed. And don't be afraid to admit you don't know something as a leader. I think leaders get scared of that sometimes. They don't, even as teachers. Teachers get scared to say they don't know something, but the truth is that not everybody knows everything, and you don't always have to know everything, that you can lead with questions and get answers and good feedback. And that, I believe, is the important things I took out of